Everything we're going to learn about the rear derailleur also applies to the front. A little bit different, right? We got multiple gears back here. Doesn't matter if you have 5 gears, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. This is all going to be the same. Derailleurs really haven't changed for decades. So this derailleur here, we have limit screws. We have 1, 2. Typically they're placed together in these limit screws right here. And then we have our pinch cable bolts. So the cable's coming through and this cable's going to pinch it. And then usually we have a B screw. Now this B screw's positioned right here. This one's probably a little harder to see. Usually sits by itself. So if you're having issues shifting in between this fence line and is having trouble getting up, or it's shifting twice or not moving at all, then it's going to be an indexing issue. And that's where the barrel adjuster, so depending on your derailleur, you're going to have a barrel adjuster here, or it could be over at your shifter. Or in this case, maybe an inline barrel adjuster, so it's somewhere. And then some of the frames have them right here as well. So depending whether you have a drop bar like this or you have a flat bar like a mountain bike. So limit screws, we have 1, 2. One of these is high, one of these is low. Just because this one's high doesn't mean it's pertaining to your high gearing. Manufacturers could swap these around, so you always got to get some eyeballs in there. Or there's another way to tell, and I'll let you know. And the derailleur can move in many different ways. It definitely moves side to side. That's what's going to be changing the gears, moving the chain over, and then it can pivot. Here's our installation point right here. This is going to screw in and connect to the frame. So we got a pivot point right there. And then we also have our derailleur cage. This unit right here is going to house 2 wheels, a lower wheel and an upper wheel. So the chain's running through here, fixed and running through, going around to the gearing right there. So those are free spinning. This can also move, so there's a pivot point at this junction as well. So that can go forward. So that rotates. Got a rotation here. Those are the 2 main ones, and then of course moving sideways. What's going to move it sideways is when we go to shift our gears, the cable pulls, tells the derailleur to move sideways, or the spring inside here is going to tell it to come back down and go back into your smaller gear. So what the limit screws are doing, they're telling the derailleur to move a certain spacing, move a certain distance going that way, and it needs to stop here. So if I manually move this, if I pedal and give this a push, it's moving the chain. It's going to tell it, hey, stop here on my last gear. This is gear number 1. If we continue to push, it's going to go off and go hit your spoke protector if you have one, or go into the spokes and get caught between your first gear and your spokes. You'll get jammed up there. That's probably the worst scenario. Now what allows this to come back down is there's a spring in here that's always under tension. So when you go to downshift, this spring is going to say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and pull. It's going to drop down however many gears you tell it to. Since I didn't shift, it went back down to its resting spot where the shifter was resting. In this case, we have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, a 9 speed. So counting your cassetter is going to tell you what speed you are, what chain you're going to need, 9 speed, and so on. Dictates everything. So coming back down on its own, the high limit screw tells the derailleur come down, stop here at gear number 9. If the limit screw's not set properly, if the limit screw was backed out a little too much, that would increase the space available, and then the spring would just continue to come towards me, and the chain would run right into the frame. So depending on your bike, you may get stuck, you may just hit and take some paint off. So the only time you're getting a tool and adjusting your limit screws is if your chain is going off into your spokes or spoke protector, or coming down and getting caught into your frame. That's the only time you're going to touch those limit screws. Once you set them, you forget them. They should not come out of adjustment usually, unless you have an accident or somebody put a tool on it and messed them up. But they're pretty much putting up a fence line here and a fence line here. Put them in cement, boom, should be good to go. So if you're having issues shifting in between this fence line and is having trouble getting up, or it's shifting twice or not moving at all, then it's going to be an indexing issue. And that's where the barrel adjuster, so depending on your derailleur, you're going to have a barrel adjuster here, or it could be over at your shifter, or in this case maybe an inline barrel adjuster, so it's somewhere. And then some of the frames have them right here as well. So depending whether you have a drop bar like this or you have a flat bar like a mountain bike. B screw being this guy right here. basically it's creating a straight line going right into this frame, so it's bracing off of the frame. So if I tighten this screw, because it's going through the derailleur and the screw's hitting a dead end, it's going to force the derailleur to move back. So if I go clockwise righty-tighty, derailleur's going to move back this way, also creating chain tension. So if you have a saggy chain, you'll be able to straighten it out and get it to sit nice and straight rather than droop or sag. If I loosen, if I go counterclockwise, it's going to go inward, releasing tension of the chain. Go too much, and of course, yes, you'll get some chain sag. And that would be our chain sag. Something like this. That would be a droopy chain that kind of just shakes there. So clockwise, going righty-tighty. And the only time you're going to see this is if you're in your very last gear, probably your smallest gearing of your cassette and your smallest gearing in the front chainring, where you can check your B screw for that. And also up here in gear number 1, we go to our largest gear, and you're going to stay in your smallest gear in front, and that'll be another check for the B screw. So if we shift all the way up, take it into your very last or first gear, biggest gear here, easy climbing gear. We only got one chainring here, so that's okay. The other thing we're looking at is, so if I go to tighten that B screw again, if I go clockwise, drives it in, which is going to in turn push off of the frame and make the derailleur go back. And yeah, this one's already getting tight, but it can move back, in essence pulling the chain a little bit tighter. Also moving this upper pulley wheel away from that big gear.